Please be seated. For those of you who have been here a long time, I've been here about 5 years, this is called a pulpit. People speak from up here sometimes. For those of you who, that's an inside joke, for those of you who are new to the congregation or visiting today, my name's David, and usually I don't speak from up here, I speak from down there. I'm just doing something different today to keep you all on your toes. I'm actually a better speaker on the floor than I am in the pulpit, so I wanted to practice on you a little bit. Maybe I'll get better. This is a fairly short idea I wanted to share with you today, a short message, pretty simple. It has 3 simple parts to it. When you abide in the vine, what is it to abide in the vine, and how? How do you abide in the vine? When we use that metaphor, Jesus says, He is the vine and we are the branches, and if we were to stay connected to Him, we would be very fruitful in our lives. And if we could stay in Him, the other words for that are to be in God or be in Christ. A couple things are really kind of resulting from that kind of a life. When you or I can find ourselves abiding or being in God, or acting and doing our lives in Christ, or being connected to the vine, one of the things I find is when I'm like that, and when you are like that, people, whatever they do is multiplied greatly from what they could do ordinarily on their own power or under their own ego or just by themselves without being connected to the vine. They become much more creative, which kind of makes sense. If God is the creator and we're connected to the creator would flow through us. We would be creative people. We would have a much higher energy about us as we're doing whatever we're doing. We might even be enthusiastic about it, regardless of what the results are. We would still be enthusiastic and have a high energy and a great creativity when we are abiding in the vine, when we're feeling connected to God. The word enthusiasm, someone told me, means to be in God. To be en theos. When you're enthusiastic, it's as if the Spirit is in you and the Spirit is flowing through you. You are abiding in the vine, and you can bear much fruit with great enthusiasm. And I find whenever we are in the vine or enthusiastic, things seem to time out better than they would have otherwise. Timing works better. There's a certain synchronicity about whatever we're doing, a certain flow to it. Nothing is pushed, nothing is rushed, but things happen in a timely manner. And the resources we need to complete the task, the resources and what we need, come to us as we need them. So timing and resources and energy and enthusiasm. When we abide in the vine, when we are in God, those things seem to happen. Also, when we are abiding or remaining or feel like we're in God in whatever we're doing, there's a certain fullness of joy about the whole activity, because we're not that worried about what we're doing. We're not worried about what we're doing or what the results will be or the outcome, but we will be simply enjoying being alive, have a fullness of life. We'll be fully alive. And there's a great joy in that, no matter what happens in the outcome of the activity. There's a great joy about being in God, connected to the vine. Somebody, one of the priests in the diocese, told me, he was quoting somebody else, but he said, people don't want to know about Christianity, they want to know how to be really alive. And those people who find themselves connected to God, connected to the vine, they are really alive. And they are full of joy because of it. Finally, whenever we really feel like we're ourselves, when we're fully ourselves and we're really in God, in Christ, in the vine, there can be a sense of peace about what we're doing. And our lives have a calmness behind them because we're not worried about the results, because the results will take care of themselves. And even when we're doing something that we think is tedious or repetitive or boring or irritating, which is probably a lot of things in life, even then, you can bring a sense of acceptance to that task. Acceptance and surrender and letting go of whatever that unpleasant part is so that you have a sense of peace about what you're doing. So when you're in traffic, that's what you're doing. And if you're in God, you can have a sense of peace about it. You accept what is, and you're in the presence of God. If you're folding laundry, after the millionth time you folded your kids' laundry, or you're going to the grocery store, and you've been there 4 times in one day because you're forgetting something, you said, if I have to get in this line one more time. But if you're connected to the vine, and you feel like you are in God, then you have a sense of peace about it. You can accept the part that you don't like. You can accept it. So if you put all those things together, that's a mouthful when you say, well, I am living my life connected to the vine. I am in God. I am in Christ. Christ is in me. I can be full of creativity and enthusiasm. I can have a sense of joy about being alive. I can have a sense of peace and acceptance behind what otherwise would be trouble. So that's what it's like when we abide in Christ. And the second part is like this. What does it mean? What does it mean to abide in the vine? I think it's a way of living, or a stance, or a point of view. It's a way of being there. For example, when you are really abiding in Christ, you are really being there in the moment. You are not in the past, nor in the future. You are present in the very moment. And you're anchored right there. And that is the hardest thing in the whole world to do. But when you can stay in the moment and stay present in the moment, that's the only place you can really be. That's what it's like to abide in the vine. Present in the moment. It also means, this is what it is, you can be very self-forgetful, not worried about yourself. And I thought of 2 descriptions of what that's like. One of them has to do with dogs, which you've heard a lot of dog stories from me recently. The other one is about sex. I thought, which one would they rather hear, the sexy one or the dog one? I'm going with the dog one. I know you all very well, but this could get on the, well, it's going to get on the internet, and I don't want to be misunderstood. But the dog one is simple. But you can ask me after church, what is it like to be, well, you can imagine, just imagine. I'll just say this, your best sex is when you are not remembering yourself. Now back to the dog. When there were these two dogs, this is a true story, although it's told from the point of view of the dogs, so you can't be totally sure the interpretation is right. The two dogs were friends. They they were in Colorado. They lived out on the outside of a small town in Colorado, and their owner had a dog door in his house, which allowed the dogs to come in and out of his house at will. And they played together a lot. Actually, one belonged to the neighbor. The neighbor's dog would come over to his house, and the two dogs could buddy up whenever they wanted to. It was Colorado, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. The perfect life for the perfect dog, right? How could you want anything more than that? As it turns out, the neighbor's dog got cancer in its nose, and because these people had the money and they had the inclination, they treated the dog for cancer. And when the dog came back from the vet, recovering from the treatment, the dog had a big chunk of its snout gone away because they had to take the cancer out of the dog's jaw and nose. So it was going to be fine, but it was horribly disfigured, missing half of its nose. So when he bounded through the dog door to meet his friend said, "Oh, you're missing half your nose. Well, let's go to the lake." That's what they always did. They always go to the lake. So dogs never worry about what they look like. And dogs don't care about their friends when they look funny. And you have your best sex when you don't think about yourself. When we're abiding in the vine, we can be really self-forgetful. Finally, what it's like to abide in the vine. There's a sense of the present moment. There's a sense of being self-forgetful. There's also the sense that you are kind of a vehicle for a higher power, that the creative flow is using you as an instrument, and you are participating, but you are a conduit for a higher energy, and you sense that you're being used by higher order. And you can begin to see that in yourself, and then you can see it in the other people around you. So there's a sense of commonality between you. You say, oh, that person is also a vehicle of the divine, a vessel of the Spirit, a branch belonging to the vine. And then you see the connections around you. So when we are in the vine, what it's like is we feel a union with other people, or a communion with the world about us. If I put all of those things together, being in the vine, being in God, being in Christ, would be incredible. You would show forth a creativity that you could not have on your own, a sense of joy about your life and being fully alive, a sense of peace when you can accept things that are hard to accept. You'd be standing in the present moment, being self-forgetful, and knowing you're connected to all the other beings that are full of the Spirit. What could be more important than that? So the third question is, how does one abide in the vine? How does one stay connected and be in Christ or in God? How does one do it? That would be the most important question you could ask, ever. You know, we ask a lot of questions in the church world, in our congregation. We ask, how much money do we have in the budget for X, Y, and Z, and to pay for that repair, which is pretty important. But the most important question is, yes, and how do you abide in the vine? There's important things to do. Who's going to pay for the new youth minister? How are we going to build the new nursery? What are we going to do when the baptismal family doesn't show up in 5 minutes and I have to do something else? Those are all important questions. But the most important question is, yeah, but how do you abide in the vine? That's what we need to know. That is the mother of all questions. It's the reason to have a church. Well, when we leave church today, you can ask me all kinds of questions about appointments and things that are important, but the real question you really want to ask me is, David, how do I abide in the vine? Ask your spouse that. Ask your kids, how do I abide in the vine? Ask your friends. Say, how do I abide in the vine? How do you abide in the vine? How do you stay in God, in Christ? I mean, that's the question of questions. For if we abide in the vine, there is peace and joy and enthusiasm, self-forgetfulness, living in the present moment, and a connection to everything that is. How do we abide in the vine? That's what I want you to leave with today when you go home. What was the question again?